Pasta used to be simple wheat, water, and time. Today, it's an industry built on speed and illusion. The boxes look the same, but the truth isn't. Many of the best-known names now cut costs with mixed wheat, high-heat drying, and additives that mimic the color and texture real semolina once gave naturally. Some have even faced lawsuits over false Italian claims. Others were pulled into recalls that most shoppers never heard about. In this report, we'll look at 5 pasta brands you should avoid and 2 that are still worth trusting. The difference between them isn't taste alone. It's honesty, method, and care. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. Because the comfort food we all grew up with has quietly become one of the most industrialized products in the grocery aisle. Before you drop the next box into your cart, it's time to see what's really inside. We're in Barilla. Barilla has always felt like a safe choice. The blue box, the Italian name, the neat promise of tradition. For years, it sat in American kitchens as a small sign of trust. You didn't question it, you just boiled the water. That's why the court case in 2024 landed hard. A California judge allowed a class action suit to move forward, arguing that Barilla's claim Italy's #1 brand of pasta might mislead ordinary shoppers. The noodles, the lawyer said, weren't made in Italy at all. They came from plants in Iowa and New York using wheat sourced largely from North America. The phrase on the box wasn't about place, it was about marketing. However, the problem wasn't limited to geography. Barilla's own disclosures show that its standard pasta line relies on fast-drying systems that run at higher heat to save time and energy. In truth, that method changes more than the schedule. It alters the starch structure that gives pasta its bite. What should dry slowly for a day is often done in a few hours. After all, the label still reads as if nothing has changed. The Italian script, the golden wheat, the family-style imagery, they all sell a story older than the product itself. Most shoppers never look past it. They see Italian #1 and assume quality has traveled across the ocean. Inside the industry, this pattern has a name origin inflation. A brand builds value on a foreign identity while producing locally for scale. It's not illegal, but it blurs the line between pride and pretense. When the class action surfaced, Barilla argued that its slogan simply reflected heritage, not location. Legally, that might stand. Culturally, it reveals how far food marketing has drifted from the kitchens it romanticizes. Consumers notice something else too. Online reviews over the past 2 years mention that Barilla pasta turns mushy faster, or that the color feels dull compared to before. That isn't nostalgia speaking, it's chemistry. Lower protein wheat and high heat drying weaken the gluten network so the noodles break down sooner. You can taste the compromise even if you don't have the words for it. Still, many keep buying. Habit is strong. The brand sits where it always has priced just right, and nostalgia forgives a lot. But behind that, everyday comfort is an endless shift. The world's most famous pasta brand now embodies the gap between Italian in name and industrial, in fact. The case didn't end in scandal. No shelves were cleared, no recalls announced. Barilla continues to dominate global sales. Yet the lawsuit opened a window most people didn't want to look through. It showed how a product can carry cultural weight long after its process has changed. That dissonance between memory and method is the new normal in much of the grocery aisle. Barilla isn't the villain of this story, it's the mirror. The brand reminds us how easy it is to trust packaging more than practice and how heritage can survive in print long after it fades in production. Fame protects image, not integrity, and the water keeps boiling. Due Ronzoni. 4 years before Barilla, there was another recalled pasta. Things weren't much different then. In 2020, Ronzoni Smart Taste Extra Wide Egg Noodles were pulled from shelves because they contained egg that wasn't listed on the label. It sounded small, just a missing word. But for many people, that missing word could be dangerous. When someone with an egg allergy eats a food like that, the body can react within minutes. The immune system sees the egg protein as a threat and releases chemicals that cause swelling, breathing trouble, or even a sudden drop in blood pressure. In serious cases, it can lead to a medical emergency. It only takes a small amount. What looks like a labeling slip is actually a health risk. There's also the problem of how such mistakes happen. When pasta is made on the same line as other egg-based products, even a trace left behind can make its way into a plain noodle batch. If cleaning steps or ingredient checks are skipped, contamination becomes almost certain. That's not bad luck, that's poor control. The irony is that this brand was called Smart Taste. It was advertised as a better choice, higher in fiber, lower in calories, good for families. But good packaging doesn't make good science. A food that forgets to tell you what's inside can't be called smart. Doctors often say that food safety starts with trust. What goes on the label isn't marketing, it's a promise to the human body. When a label breaks that promise, even accidentally, the body doesn't negotiate, it reacts. Most people never heard about this recall. It was small-handled, discreetly, and forgotten within weeks. But the event pointed to something bigger, a system that measures success by shelf space and speed, not by care. Mistakes like this rarely make headlines because they're fixed fast, but each one shows how fragile quality control really is. The biological part is simple. Our bodies expect honesty. They process food based on what they're told to expect. When a brand replaces truth with convenience, the result isn't just a technical error, it's a physical one. Allergies, inflammation, stomach discomfort, they're all reminders that the body can't be fooled as easily as a shopper. So yes, the recall was small. No nationwide panic, no public outrage. But it said something loud about how far healthy branding can drift from real safety. The smarter the marketing sounds, the less we sometimes look. The real issue wasn't the egg. It was the system that forgot to mention it. And that system doesn't just miss ingredients, it cuts corners in how pasta itself is made. That's where the next story begins. 3. Walmart market-side prepared pasta. What happens when a food line never stops moving? That question sits at the center of the market side recall, not a scandal, not a villain, just a moment when speed finally caught up with reality. In June 2025, a batch of market-side chicken fettuccine Alfredo was recalled after the FDA linked it to a listeria investigation. The same supplier, Fresh Realm, also packed meals for Kroger and Trader Joe's. It wasn't one brand's failure, it was the system's. A single production line feeding multiple names, all depending on the same temperature, controls the same workers, the same clock. Inside a co-packing facility, pasta doesn't sleep. The cooked noodles move from one conveyor to the next, cooling, portioning, sealing, all within minutes. Every minute saved increases output, every pause risks backlog and spoilage. The machinery is built for motion, not patience. In theory, the cold chain should hold the product below 40 degrees until it reaches the store shelf. In practice, the line runs hotter, faster, and longer than design manuals predict. First comes production, then packaging, then distribution. Each stage is timed to fractions of an hour. Shift supervisors track throughput in units per minute, not meals per person. Cooling tunnels are pushed to capacity. Refrigerated trucks queue up outside, waiting to load while product temperatures climb degree by degree. No one breaks protocol intentionally, they simply stretch it to fit demand. Meanwhile, the economics make slowing down impossible. Supermarkets negotiate contracts by volume and deadline. If a supplier delivers late, penalties apply. If the run stops for cleaning or testing, thousands of dollars vanish each hour. So the incentive isn't safety in full, it's safety enough. A balance between what's ideal on paper and what's acceptable in profit. By design, this model rewards consistency, not caution. The pasta that comes off the belt looks perfect, creamy, sealed, chilled. Behind that appearance, the buffer between safe and unsafe might be a matter of minutes. One batch cools slightly slower. One truck door doesn't close fast enough, and an invisible organism finds the warmth it needs. In the end, no one at Walmart designed the problem, and no one alone can fix it. The same system feeds nearly every retailer with store-brand meals, the same kitchens, the same formulas, the same time pressure. What differs is the logo. And this is where the trade-off becomes visible. Customers want affordable meals ready in minutes. Corporations want throughput to match that demand. Between them sits a factory that cannot stop, not even for breath. Speed becomes both the solution and the risk. It's not corruption, it's arithmetic. Every saved second earns money, every pause costs it. And in a market that measures success by efficiency, time has replaced trust as the ingredient that matters most. Profit demands motion and motion demands risk. The question is no longer why it happens, it's how much of it we're willing to accept on our plates. 4. Kroger Home Chef prepared pasta. Coincidentally, I've just eaten this next one not long ago. I have to say it was a bit hard to swallow. It was a Home Chef chicken Alfredo from Kroger's refrigerator aisle. One of those quick heat and eat meals that promise dinner in 5 minutes. The box looked nice enough. Clean design, a little window to show the pasta inside creamy sauce tucked neatly under the lid. It smelled decent, too buttery, a little garlicky. But when I opened it, that confidence disappeared fast. The sauce was thick, but strangely lifeless, like glue that had forgotten what flavor was. The noodles broke apart with a fork, soft at the edges but cold in the center. I remember thinking it tasted like speed, something cooked too fast, cooled too slow, then packed by someone in a hurry. It filled me up, yes, but it didn't feel like food made for people. It felt like food made for volume. I thought maybe I'd just gotten a bad box. Then I checked online. The first review I found said, "Tastes bland and weirdly wet. Sauce separates after heating." Another used to be good, now feels heavy and undercooked. A third simply said I stopped buying it. Scrolling through pages of feedback, a pattern emerged. People weren't angry, they were disappointed. The taste wasn't terrible, it was forgettable. That's a different kind of failure, one harder to notice but easier to repeat. When food stops being memorable, it becomes a product, not a meal. The odd part is that this isn't a small brand mistake. The same supplier that makes Kroger's Home Chef pasta also handles meals for other stores, identical trays, slightly different labels. That explains why the texture feels so standardized. Every batch is designed to look identical to survive transport to heat evenly under 1,000 microwaves. The cost of that consistency is life, or rather the taste of it. The pasta doesn't hold the bite you expect from fresh fettuccine. It folds under its own sauce. The flavor fades before you even set the fork down. And the portion that looks generous in the box feels thin once you finish, like something designed by numbers, not cooks. Still, I can understand how it happens. When a meal needs to feed millions every minute and every cent matter, the result isn't unsafe or broken, it's just tired. And in a marketplace ruled by speed and efficiency, tired food is what survives. Maybe that's the tragedy of convenience meals. They're built for the rhythm of modern life, not the rhythm of appetite. They fill the gap, but not the soul. If Kroger keeps it this way, I won't feel strange if the queue gets shorter day by day, because people can forgive a bland meal once. But when blandness becomes a pattern, they start remembering what real dinner used to taste like. 5 Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's has always looked like the gentle alternative. The chalkboard signs, the warm lights, the hand-drawn labels, everything about the store feels human. It's small enough to trust, colorful enough to feel personal. You walk in and believe the food was made by people who care, not by systems that calculate. That feeling is powerful. It's what makes Trader Joe's different, or at least seem that way. Their shelves look like an old friend's pantry. Their tone sounds conversational, never corporate. It's the kind of place where you expect that every product has a story behind it. And for the most part, we take that story at face value. Then came the recall. In June 2025, one of Trader Joe's prepared pasta meals, a Cajun-style chicken Alfredo, was linked to the same listeria investigation that affected Walmart's Market Side and Kroger's Home Chef lines. The common thread wasn't a recipe, but a supplier fresh realm. The same factories, the same packaging process, the same temperature chain. The difference was only in presentation. At first, that's hard to accept. Trader Joe's is supposed to stand apart, artisanal, selective, almost handcrafted in spirit. But this incident pulled back the curtain on a shared truth. Even the most beloved boutique brands depend on the same industrial backbone that powers everyone else. Still, no one at Trader Joe's lied. The label wasn't false, the feeling was. The comfort came from design, from familiarity, from trust, built carefully through colors and copywriting. And that trust works maybe too well. We've grown used to judging products not by what's in them, but by how they make us feel. Online reaction said it best. One longtime shopper wrote, "I never thought something from Trader Joe's could be part of a national recall." Another said, "I guess I believe the packaging more than the product." Those aren't angry comments, they're moments of realization. They show how easily charm can soften scrutiny. It's not unique to Trader Joe's either. Across the grocery world, aesthetic trust has become its own kind of safety net. A clean font, a matte box, and a story about small producers, they all tell us you're safe here. But packaging isn't a promise. It's a mirror reflecting what we want to believe. In reality, the store's private label model depends on contracted manufacturers, just like its larger competitors. The supply chain has shared the risk identical. What changes is tone, and tone can disguise almost anything. That doesn't mean we should stop shopping or stop trusting. It just means trust should come with awareness. The next time a product looks crafted, ask yourself what that really means. A label can tell a story, but it can't replace truth. Good packaging should invite curiosity, not replace it. And the moment we start looking beyond appearance, we might finally taste the difference between being comforted and being informed. 6. Scott & John's Frozen Shrimp Scampi Bowl. An industry dietitian once told me frozen meals are engineered to survive, not to shine. And she was right. Scott & John's Shrimp Scampi with linguine proves how convenience changes what pasta really is. On paper, it's a smart option. Shrimp, garlic, butter sauce, and pasta that can be ready in minutes. The label shows balance, fewer calories, decent protein, a feel-good story about two brothers trying to make frozen food healthier. It sounds like the perfect middle ground between fast and responsible. Still, what happens inside the bowl tells a different story. The shrimp looks firm but often feels rubbery. The noodles sit in sauce that's either too watery or too sticky. The taste isn't bad, it's just muted like the memory of a meal rather than the meal itself. In practice, that's what freezing does. When pasta is cooked, frozen, and reheated, ice crystals form inside the starch. They cut through the gluten network, breaking the structure that normally gives pasta its chew. That's why reheated noodles feel soft, not springy. To compensate, manufacturers add small amounts of modified starch and emulsifiers. Those ingredients help sauce cling to the noodles, but they also flatten flavor. What you gain in stability, you lose in life. Meanwhile, the microwave adds its own problems. Every kitchen, every wattage, every turntable spins differently. Some bites end up scalding others still cold. That's why frozen meals rely heavily on salt, not just for taste, but to mask inconsistency. Sodium keeps flavor uniform even when heating isn't. It's clever science, but also trade-off. By design, the economics are tight. A single bowl costs around $5. It travels across states, sits for months, and still needs to look fresh. To achieve that, every element is optimized for durability: thicker noodles, more coating, less aroma. It's not neglect, it's engineering. The goal is to make sure the first bowl and the last bowl taste roughly the same no matter where you eat them. The brand had its moment in the recall headlines too. One of its shrimp pasta bowls was listed among those connected to the broader listeria investigation. Not because of wrongdoing, but because all frozen suppliers share the same complex network of cold storage and distribution. The incident just reminded consumers that small brands live inside big systems. None of this makes Scott & John's bad. It's simply built for endurance. Frozen meals have to survive heat transport and time, the three things no fresh dish ever should. They exist to fit our schedules, not our senses. The bowl is clean, the label honest, the convenience real. But the truth sits in the texture: pasta that never quite wakes up, sauce that never quite settles. If a meal has to endure months of cold and minutes of heat, the compromise will always show up on your fork. 7. Sprouts Farmers Market. The last one, sadly, is the latest recalled pasta. Sprouts smoked mozzarella pasta salad, the one that looked the cleanest, the most trustworthy, was listed in the October 2025 listeria recall. At first, it didn't make sense. Sprouts was supposed to be different bright lights, green logos, the scent of herbs at the entrance. A place that felt like health had a shape and color. The pasta salad sat in clear tubs, soft yellow noodles coated in creamy dressing, bits of red pepper and cheese scattered neatly. It looked like something made in the back of the store that morning, but it wasn't. Like most fresh deli salads in supermarkets, it came pre-made, sealed, and shipped from a regional facility. Dozens of stores, one kitchen. The tubs arrived already portioned the same every time. The label said made fresh daily, which wasn't exactly wrong. It just left out the somewhere else part. The recall notice didn't mention Sprouts first. It appeared near the bottom of the federal list, quietly grouped with other retailers using the same supplier. The issue wasn't the recipe, but the handling. Pasta cooled too slowly. Moisture trapped under the lid, bacteria given a few hours too long to grow. Nothing visible, nothing dramatic. Just invisible life thriving where efficiency meets assumption. Eating it, you'd never know. The first bite is creamy and light. The smoked mozzarella carries a mild sweetness, a whisper of char. Then comes the aftertaste, faintly metallic, oddly cold even at room temperature, like something that's been through too many fridges. It lingers, not unpleasant but artificial in a way you can't quite describe. The kind of flavor that makes you drink water without realizing why. That's the painful irony of modern fresh food. It looks more natural than ever, yet depends on the same refrigerated trucks, the same sealed packaging, the same clockwork logistics as frozen meals. Fresh has become a schedule, not a quality. Most customers never read the recall list. They walked in, picked up the salad, and left trusting the word farmers more than the fine print. And maybe that's what hurts most. Not that something went wrong, but that it could happen in the very place built on avoiding it. A few days after the recall, I watched a woman in the deli aisle. She lifted a tub of the same pasta, turned it over, then put it back. For a moment, she just stood there scanning the shelf. She didn't look angry, only thoughtful, like she was searching for something she couldn't name. Finally, she reached for a pack of plain spinach instead. Maybe freshness today isn't about how fast something is made. Maybe it's about how slow we're willing to question it. The recall list might end here, but the story doesn't. Because every aisle from pasta to salad shows how convenience has quietly rewritten what we call food. However, somewhere beyond the shelf, there are still brands proving that patience, transparency, and time can bring real flavor back. 8. Rao's Homemade. Rao's doesn't chase trends. It slows down deliberately. Every jar of its marinara sauce is cooked in small batches with the kind of patience that most factories have long forgotten. There's no race against the clock here. No cutting corners for speed. Just heat time and simple ingredients doing what they've always done best. That philosophy comes from the old restaurant in New York, the original Rao's, where recipes weren't written down but lived through habit. When the brand expanded to grocery shelves, it didn't reinvent the wheel. It simply tried to preserve that same rhythm, slow simmering, no added sugar olive oil instead of seed oils and tomatoes sourced for taste rather than yield. The process looks plain on paper, but its simplicity is the reason the sauce stays real. Most companies build efficiency around automation. Rao's builds patience around flavor. Its kettles cook low and steady, allowing tomatoes to break down naturally and herbs to blend without bitterness. The result isn't flashy, it's consistent. There hasn't been a major recall, no viral controversy, no grand marketing claim. Just confidence in doing the ordinary well. Still, slowing down isn't easy in a market that rewards speed. Each jar takes longer, costs more, and competes with brands that can fill an entire aisle overnight. That's the trade-off between time and scale. Rao's isn't a perfect model. It's simply one that accepts the cost of staying honest. The brand charges more because it refuses to dilute what makes it real. And in today's food system, that kind of refusal is rare. You can taste that patience. The color of the sauce sits deeper, more brick than crimson. The aroma opens gently, garlic first, then tomato, then the faint sweetness of basil. On the tongue, it's balanced, rich, but not heavy, savory without excess salt. There's a clean finish, the kind that doesn't coat your mouth, but leaves a tender warmth instead. That's what happens when food is treated like food, not product. Even the jar tells the story. It's simple, almost old-fashioned. No oversized claims, no neon fonts, no health buzzwords. Just a small label that feels earned. In a world where every sauce tries to prove something Rao's doesn't have to. It lets time do the talking. Sometimes honesty doesn't shout from the label. It simmers slowly, waiting to be tasted. And maybe that's the lesson here, that the best progress in food doesn't always move faster. It just remembers what was never broken. 9 Rusticella d'Abruzzo. For this last one, I'll tell you my favorite. I always buy it when I'm craving pasta. Rusticella d'Abruzzo, a small family brand from the hills of central Italy, has been making pasta the same way since 1924. No slogans, no influencers, just tradition in every strand. The company started in a small mill near Pianella, a town most tourists never visit. The founder, Gaetano Sergiacomo, built his recipes on 3 ideas: pure Durham wheat bronze molds and patience. Nearly a century later, those ideas haven't changed much. The machines are newer, but the rhythm is still human, slow drying, long resting, careful cutting. Each batch takes more than 50 hours to complete. Then comes the achievement. Rusticella's pasta isn't mass-produced for supermarkets. It's respected by chefs across Europe and the United States. Many Michelin-starred kitchens stably keep it in their storerooms. Not because it's exotic, but because it behaves like real food should. It holds sauce, keeps its bite, and never falls apart under pressure. Even reheated, it tastes alive. The process is the reason. Instead of the usual Teflon dies that leave pasta smooth and shiny, Rusticella uses bronze molds. That makes the surface rough, imperfect to the eye, perfect for the sauce. And instead of drying at high heat for speed, the noodles dry slowly at low temperature, locking in flavor and texture. The wheat stays golden, the protein stays strong. Every minute spent drying adds depth. Of course, it costs more. A single box can be 2 or even 3 times the price of a supermarket brand. But when you understand what's behind it, the grain, the air, the time, the price starts to make sense. You're not just buying food, you're buying care measured in hours instead of minutes. I first tried it on a peaceful evening during the pandemic. Nothing fancy, just olive oil, garlic, and a bit of Parmesan. But the difference was instant. The noodles didn't collapse under the fork. The taste lingered, wheat-salt patience. It reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that good food doesn't have to surprise you. It just has to be true. Today, Rusticella sells in more than 70 countries. It still feels local, the kind of brand that succeeds by staying small. In a market where everything speeds up, it slows down. Try it and you'll find trust in pasta again. Because sometimes the simplest ingredients handled with time and respect are all it takes to remind us why we fell in love with food in the first place. We've walked through shelves of illusion and honesty, of shortcuts and patience. From mass-made comfort to firm craftsmanship, one truth stood out: food reflects how much we still care. Every recall, every label, every story tells us the same thing: what we choose shapes what survives. Yes, the system is vast and fast, but it can still listen. When people start reading labels, asking questions, and supporting brands that value time over profit, change follows slowly, then all at once. The future of food doesn't belong to machines or marketing. It belongs to awareness, to shoppers who pause, think, and buy with purpose. Because every dollar spent is a small vote for what kind of kitchen the world will become. Eat wisely, choose patiently, and trust that the best flavors are the ones made with care.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.